And of course, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fantastic day today.
Actually, can you do push-ups?
Oh, yes, me?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah? I think our viewers would like to see you do push-ups since you were advising Chade.
Your viewers would have seen me do push-ups before.
They don't remember.
Well, we did it on Friday. I found scoop for the sun.
Actually, push up now so you're strong enough to scoop. Hey, come on, man. Have a wonderful Wednesday. In the words of my wise friend IT.
God without man is still God.
That's right.
But you see, man without God, nothing. Nada, zilch, zero, vapor, this. That.
Happy hump day.
Have a fantastic day.
My name is Glenn Titus Campbell, CVM. See it happen.
Lead Story, brought to you by
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial. Good evening. Despite a broad decline in national murder rates, some of the most dangerous forms of violence in Jamaica remain persistent and, in many cases, invisible. Tonight on Lead Story, we examine the gaps. From domestic violence cases where victims sought help but were still killed, to questions about whether our system protects people after they report. We also look at a deadly practice making a return, the ingestion of cocaine pellets, and why medical experts say there is no safe version of that risk. And we close by asking whether Jamaica's access to information laws are strong enough to support accountability in a modern democracy. This is Lead Story. A heavy show start today as we start our look at domestic violence, system failure and protection gaps. A murder-suicide has once again forced the country to confront a hard truth. For many women, reporting abuse does not guarantee safety. Shock rippled through Harbourview, East Kingston, following a suspected murder-suicide involving a married couple on Dorado Drive. The bodies of 53-year-old Maureen Thompson Palmer and her 49-year-old husband Pete Palmer were discovered in their yard mid-morning, both suffering fatal injuries. The police say investigations are ongoing and the matter is being treated as a murder-suicide. Critically, however, law enforcement officials have confirmed that just days earlier, on January 11, the husband had been charged by the Harbourview police with assault occasioning actual bodily harm arising from an earlier incident involving his wife. For advocates, however, this case underscores a recurring and deeply troubling pattern. Situations where victims had already come into contact with the justice system, yet lethal violence still occurred. It raises urgent questions about whether protection orders, criminal charges, and existing safeguards are sufficient to interrupt escalating domestic violence before it turns fatal. Joining us now is Executive Director of E for Life, Joy Crawford. And E for Life is an organization working daily with victims and survivors. Joy Crawford, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Thank you so much, Jodi-Ann. Thank you so much. Difficult conversation. Yes, but we have to have it.
A rough
conversation for many Jamaicans, Joy Crawford, because unlike you, this is something that goes in and out of view for them. They don't deal with the survivors as often as you do, and they don't, unfortunately, have to comfort the families of victims. Talk to us now about this newest saga, this now reported murder-suicide that has taken place in Harbour View, and the reports that we have heard that they were before the courts, that this was actually in process, reports had been made, and that they were in the process of getting a divorce. Is that a particularly dangerous time for a woman in domestic violence situations?
Definitely. So divorce, of course, is getting very far now. But what we do know, unfortunately, the majority of the perpetrators in our murder-suicide, like this one, involved in domestic violence are men. And there are a number of things that we need to look at and how we help. So you mentioned, for example, the court, the Domestic Violence Act, so they have gotten a protective order. All of those things are very relevant. But I think one of the things that we need to look at as a society is community. And community is meaning community, first of all, of their circle of influence.
Your community is a circle of influence, but this is something that community members, in response and in reaction to what had taken place with the suspected murder-suicide, indicated in Gleaner reports that they had been aware of what had been going on in that household for some time, that they had given counsel to the wife before her death, and that they had been watching the behavioral changes in the husband before this took place. How does a community see something like this and then stop it?
Great. So all of those things are there. One of the challenges that we have is how do we, for example, move forward to ensure that there's action that takes place? Not necessarily from the victim. A lot of times the weaker party, and in this case the woman, doesn't necessarily have the capacity or the resolve or the determination. In this case, if she was filing for divorce, it means that she had made a decision. Where is it that we now guide her in this decision? Now the red flag, there was violence before. Violence will continue. Does she wait until she gets a court order to move out of the state? When she interferes with the court, what did we do in those 2 weeks, 3 months? How did we guide her to say, listen, while you wait on a process that might be slow or ineffective, how do you do your physical safety? So let me go back to community. You can't force someone to leave their home or leave a situation. But most people will leave or if they feel like they have an alternative for safety and protection. In other words, if I go somewhere, he won't follow me and he won't get to me. Are we providing those somewhere? At a government level, at a family level, at a church level, where in our society do victims and women who have been abused go for safety and security? That is the biggest need. And until we can provide that in a real way, or we recognize that, they won't feel confident, they won't feel bold enough, and they won't feel safe enough to even say, I am going to move out. So that's one of the things. We have to, as a community, as a country, do better in providing safe spaces for women to flee to. In the absence of that, unfortunately, they go back home and they're in the situation while they're waiting for the slow moving hand of the clock to kick in.
Talk to me again then about these sorts of assistance mechanisms, because you have said if someone knows they have somewhere else to go, they'll move. And it did seem in the reporting that she had been staying in the house because there had been a disagreement as to how the property would be now separated between them in the divorce proceedings. But for someone who is watching this right now or knows of someone who might be in a difficult position, they might have heard of the opening of a new new women's shelter. They might hear of organizations like yours, E for Life. Are there enough of these support facilities across the island to therefore deal with the situation of domestic violence that we know we have on the island?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The bedding space in all the shelters that exist in government or in some civil society is nothing to meet the needs of the high level of women that need to leave. So what we need to look at, for example, we have victim support, which is one of the government entities. How do we probably integrate into them? Because they're the ones who are interfacing first to prepare people to go through the legal support. How do we now support them and come up with different strategies to say, okay, while you're having the conversation with the person around the legal pieces, here is what we do specifically for women in these situations, especially when they have already experienced the violence. So that in itself is a friend. The other piece of it would be now to be just focusing on removing the perpetrator rather than trying to remove the victim. These are some solid conversations. What we do know is that as long as there's violence, it is going to escalate.
You spoke about the high rates, though, of domestic violence and this knowledge that we don't have enough capacity here on the island. As overall murders trend downward, though, and we're seeing that decline, domestic violence remains something that we're talking about. Help us understand the numbers of domestic violence and intimate partner threats that we have here on the island, especially for 2025, as we're comparing now what we saw as a decline in murders, but some feel a steady through line with intimate partner and domestic violence.
Some data is telling us still one increase of gender-based violence in general, and intimate violence, intimate partner, they're saying 1 in 5. Now, to understand this is to say the violence, when we see the physical piece of it, it's usually the introduction. It starts from the emotional, the rating, the showing up of the ownership, the male dominance. If I can't have you, no one will have you. Those things that are entrenched. And where our society says, it's man and woman story. Go back and sort it out with your husband. Go do some kind of mediation.
Is that something that you are concerned about when it comes to police responses as well? Because we'll be having the police next. Is that something that prevents people from getting assistance when they go and speak to someone, and that might include the state response, the state including the police, and they get told it's a man and woman story, it's between two partners, go sort it out yourselves?
We hear that all the time. I mean, we now have the Domestic Violence Intervention Center, which is based in the JK. And they have a clear idea and indication how to manage these. But they're not in every station, they're not in every parish, and not every police officer. So we still have that cultural thing where we don't understand that when it comes to intimate partner violence and domestic violence, violence full stop. It is not the space for mediation. You can't feel where you're being hurt. So there has to be a process where we remove the individuals from each other so that the process can take place and lives are not lost. So we have to deal with that. How we respond to. I want to say quickly around this, it's around mental health. When people are hurting and they feel wounded and they feel depressed on both sides, the perpetrator and the victim, serious mental health issues are going on. And again, we don't have a culture where we go and we get help. We seem to think that help means that we are incapacitated or powerless or we gone crazy. But your point is that you need help because you're in a situation that will make you that way. That's another thing that we don't realize. So what happened this morning or last night in Harborview would not have started yesterday. If they're going through a divorce, it means that they'd have had at least 2 years of public or known separation or conflict. All of those things. That's a long period of time to be festering without any help. So mental health and emotional health in relationships, we want couples to take that a lot more serious. It's not just something that you suffer and bear because you really don't have the capacity to think straight. when you're going through this.
And I think that is so important that we end this conversation on that note, because you're saying help is going to be necessary. The intervention of police in recognizing it as a violent act, not just one that says mediation gets you back together. As you said, you can't heal where you're being hurt, but also helping people, as you helped us look through some of those warning signs. Those would allow persons who might be in dangerous situations to get out as well. Executive Director of E for Life, George Crawford, thank you so very much for joining us this evening inside Lead Story. Have a good day yourself. We're going to take a break and come back, because the police also have a role to play. So we'll be looking at police responses to domestic violence next inside Lead Story.
For a woman in business, it's time to go bigger.
Your ambition is calling, and Horizon for Women in Business is answering.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services designed for women entrepreneurs to unlock the capital you need to grow and take your business beyond limits. With quick approval, flexible repayment, and low interest rates, your success is on the horizon.
Call us now. The funds are waiting.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
Every day starts with care. Care that's always close. Supermed Family of Pharmacies is where you go for everything you need. From your morning routine to life's biggest moments, Supermed Family of Pharmacies is always by your side. Whether it's prescriptions or household essentials, trust the care that's close to home. Super happy, super healthy, Supermed.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
Thanks so much for staying with us inside Lead Story. The continuation of our discussion now involves the police and police responses to domestic violence. This next conversation is not about individual tragedy, as we have focused on, based, or rather on what happened in Harbour View, that horrific incident. But this is now about institutional response. Because when a report is made, what's supposed to happen next? And where does protection fail? We have in this walking us through the reporting pathway from the moment a complaint is made to court involvement and protective measures. Senior Superintendent of Police and Senior Strategist in the Senior Communications Strategist inside the Jamaican Constabulary Force, Dennis Brooks. SSP Brooks, good evening and welcome inside Lead Story. SSP Brooks, you're muted, unfortunately, so we aren't able to hear you as you speak with us.
I'm sorry. Good evening, and good evening to your viewers.
Good evening, and thank you so very much for joining us this evening. It's a rough time for the nation, having heard about what's suspected to be a murder-suicide in Harbour View and the end result of domestic violence. Start us off first. When someone goes to a police station and says, I'm being hurt at home, what is it that takes place?
Well, you make a report, and it's important for persons to make that report, but it is also very important for you to give a statement. Far too often, what we have is someone will make a report and they will collect a receipt as proof that they made a report. But when you ask them to give a statement, which is absolutely necessary to take the matter further, because you can't charge someone on a report alone, you need that statement to be given. Many persons don't take the matter any further, and that is where it becomes problematic. So it is always important and it's important to know that you can make a report to any police station. Yes, we do have domestic violence intervention centers, or DVICs, that exist across the country. And so we have one on Cassava Peace Road. We have one that's in Kingston. We have one at the Alexandria Police Station in St. Anne. We have one at the Gale Police Station in St. Mary. We have one at the Hayes Police Station in Clarendon.
And you have Matilda's Caller Police Station, Morant Bay Police Station, the Grill Police Station, the Portmore Police Station, there, Brayton Parkway, Santa Cruz Police Station, Yallas Police Station. That's a long list of domestic violence intervention centers, but still not covering for some every single part and crevice of Jamaica. But this is a great step forward.
As I said, it is important to know that you can make a report to any police station. However, what we have sought to do is create these specific stations in each area of the country, in each policing area, and in each policing division. We're trying to put them in more and more policing divisions. And what we're trying to do is, for instance, these are specialist facilities that are designed for domestic violence intervention, that they're set up differently. And so the reporting is, we would say, it is far more comfortable for someone who wants to make a domestic violence report. We've noticed since the establishment of domestic violence intervention centers, the statistics in relation to men reporting domestic violence has increased significantly last year and the year before. And so we are seeing that the domestic violence intervention centers and the places that we have put them have been extremely successful. In addition to that, we have had a significant number of domestic violence pop-ups across the island. We've had cross-country tours across the island for the last few years. I think in the last 2 years, we've done several, going to various parishes and doing pop-ups. And while we are doing the public education and the edutainment, we are facilitating persons coming forward and making reports. Now, one will always say you could do more. Absolutely. This year, we're going to have one in Manchester on the 14th of February. We're going to have one in St. Elizabeth on the 21st.
These are these pop-ups that you're speaking of?
Yes, these pop-ups. We're going to have one in Westmoreland on the 28th, one in Hanover on the 7th of March, and one in St. James on the 14th of March. And so these are where we bring a large contingent of specialists into the space. And we do a lot of public education where it's concerned. We do a lot of engagement. The Community Safety and Security Branch with the specialist domestic violence unit, led by Superintendent Jackie Dillon and her team, they move into the space and they do great work. And it has been, the feedback has been excellent, that they are greatly appreciated.
SSP Brooks. Given then that you're having these pop-ups, the work of the JCF does seem to be geared towards recognizing that there's a problem here, and then not sitting back and hoping that people come to you. Now allowing them to understand what domestic violence is and putting in these domestic violence intervention centers in police stations across the island, allowing for persons to make these reports. For you though, as the JCF, this push that you have made is certainly one that recognizes the seriousness of domestic violence. Is there any data or statistics that you have that would help us figure out if we've been seeing a trend downward in domestic violence incidents and reports, or if it's pretty stable or increasing, especially as we've been able to celebrate the reduction in murders in 2025?
I think that when we look at the umbrella term domestic violence, I mean, bearing in mind that there are many other, there are several terms.
Yes. Intimate partner violence, gender-based violence. Yes.
Right. Intimate partner violence. The numbers are fairly consistent. In some parishes, I would say that there are some parishes are more problematic than others. Some parishes historically have a culture of higher numbers than other spaces. Some parishes, some spaces have a culture of reporting that leads people to be very vocal about these things. We've put resources in the spaces where we know historically need it, and that is why when we look at the domestic violence intervention centers, these centers, they're operated and manned by police officers who've received specialized training in domestic violence intervention and prevention, and we take the information that we're getting from the various divisions based on the reports that they get from the various stations about the support that they need. And so the divisions that don't have physical DVICs, the Community Safety and Security Office, they have trained domestic violence liaison officers in each of those spaces. So it's not that though they don't have adequate representation and support, but they don't yet have a center
at the police station that then
right.
would specifically set up for this. We've been talking, though, with the Executive Director of E for Life, Jo Crawford, where she indicated that there were two sticking points that had been identified by those survivors that she had spoken to. One, the initial reporting process where they're being told is man and woman argument, go home, or have mediation. And the second part is an assessment of risk. That is, who stays where and what happens as now there has been a flagging of intimate partner violence or some version of domestic violence within a household, that these people have to live together. Before we go, talk to us about those two and what the JCF is doing.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to, I can't speak to specific individual cases on the ground. What I can say with a great deal of confidence is that the 2,300, the upwards of 2,300 trained members of the JCF since 2022 are trained in how to take these matters very seriously, because we take these matters very seriously. We are guided by the domestic violence policy and the standard operating procedures of how we take reports. And what we are seeing is that persons, there are some spaces where persons have the same people coming and making the same complaints and then not furthering the matters. And I would say that in all matters we treat them seriously. So I'm not going to say that any officer should treat with a report as being, oh, we've seen you 10 times this year and you never take it as seriously. I would say I would not encourage that. Every matter needs to be taken seriously, but there are some persons, by virtue of how they respond to their matters, they don't tend to take their matters seriously. In terms of total reported cases, I can give you some numbers. In 2025, we saw 7,450 matters reported. In 2024, it was 8,078, and in 2023, it was 9,311 matters reported. And so over time, we have seen somewhat of a reduction. As I said, with the introduction of DVICs, we've seen an increase in the number of men reporting these matters. But also bear in mind that domestic violence as an umbrella term, refers to violence that takes place
in the
domestic space.
There you go.
In the domestic space. And very often, domestic violence is not only intimate partner violence.
Yes.
Domestic violence very often is perpetrated by parents against children, by siblings against each other,
and so
by
that broadening of the term, that broadening of the term that it often refers to then requires, even in reporting then, the sort of sensitization that you are able to do with us now, helping people better understand and appreciate what that blanket term covers and the specific then subcategories that might be more appropriate to them. You've also made it very clear that you can go to police stations, any police station on the island, if you or anyone you know is experiencing violence in the home. Senior Communications Strategist at the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Senior Superintendent of Police, Dennis Brooks, thank you for joining us tonight inside Lead Story.
Thank you for having me.
So that was a police response helping us better appreciate and understand the strategic frameworks that have been put in place here in Jamaica. Domestic violence intervention centers, police officers being trained, and a force that recognizes the importance of this. We heard from SSP Brooks there telling us that this is now certainly something that they not only have been watching, but are working on. We'll keep our eyes on that though, but we're moving now to a new dangerous practice that has reemerged. Ingesting cocaine to become a drug mule. If you're going to be carrying it though, those cases are ones that don't work out well. We'll talk about why we're seeing this and then what it means for you and those you love if they've decided to be part of this horrific scheme. Stay with us inside Lead Story.
Make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Ashman's Equipment, the new name in forklift sales and rentals in Jamaica. Top quality, low prices, fleet discounts available, 12-month warranty, free service parts, daily rentals, crazy cheap. Ashman's Equipment, same forklift, better deals.
Tired of the high interest rates and the whole heap of loan payments every month? Take a debt consolidation loan from AIM to pay credit card bills and all other high interest rate loans from other institutions. Make one low monthly payment to AIM and take home some extra money in your pocket. That's financial freedom. One loan, one low payment, more money in your pocket. Call AIM today to lower your loan payment. And remember, you won't find a better deal elsewhere. Guaranteed.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people them I say we are my show tonight. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't fit it down. Shine your lights
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's a live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yeah.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodi-Ann Quarry.
Brought to you by
VC's Electrical Sales.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people them I say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights
Thanks so much for staying with us inside Lead Story. We're now having a conversation about a re-emerging practice with deadly consequences. And with us, we have the Director of Treatment at the National Council on Drug Abuse, Dr. Kristen Robinson-Barrett, and General Practitioner and Sports Medicine Expert, Dr. Paul Wright. Now, before we talk to them, let's give you some background on this practice, because medical experts say this ingestion of pellets, cocaine pellets, is never a low-risk one. The ingestion of these pellets is certainly something that we've been hearing more about, with indications arising, especially after speaking with Senior Superintendent of Police Portray Rowe here at CVM, that we are now seeing more people get involved in the practice once again, especially as a result of what might be financial pressures. Dr. Paul Wright, before we go to you, let's take a listen to what Senior Superintendent of Police Portray Rowe had to say.
Seeing the ingestion of drugs becoming, once it was a prominent activity in terms of drug news and so on, I mean, we are seeing this re-emerging as something that we are concerned about, and we really want to discourage it. We will, as a part of our demand reduction lectures and talks, say to our Jamaican people that do not fall victim, because you can be killed by ingesting or participating in this activity.
How is the gentleman you said that his health deteriorated? Was it because of the ingestion?
It was because of the injection, in our view. I think he suffered on health care. His condition was compromised. I think that now we can say that he is improving. But at one point, there was a serious concern about his health because of the injection. It was at great risk for him to have ingested.
It was at great risk to him. That's what we're finding out from the head of the Firearms and Narcotics Investigation Division, Senior Superintendent of Police, Portray Rowe. Dr. Paul Wright, when you hear things like this, persons going back to now a practice that many thought we moved away from, the ingestion of cocaine pellets, what does that signal to you?
Some years ago, I watched a movie where the principals in the movie were playing a game called Russian roulette. They had a revolver, and they took out all the bullets out of the revolver with 6. The revolver has 6 cartridges in there. They took out all 6 cartridges and put in 1. Then you spin the cartridge and you aim it at somebody. Now, it has a 1 in 6 chance of that cartridge being in the firing chamber and hitting somebody. And that is called Russian roulette. Now, it is the exact same thing that these people are doing when they ingest cocaine. Cocaine is a very serious substance that is against the law that can cause serious medical problems. However, what they do is that they encase the cocaine in some form of material that will withstand the process through the digestive tract, and then they will excrete this at a later date and then open these packets to get the cocaine. The problem is coming through the digestive tract. The digestive tract includes going into the stomach with powerful acid in there, hydrochloric acid, and the action of the stomach in trying to crush whatever is in the stomach to make it become easily passed through the duodenum. Once it goes through the duodenum into the small intestine, we have bile acids and more things that assist in the digestion. What is digestion? How you can get substance out of the food that you can get into the bloodstream in order to enhance your own health. Then it gets into the large intestine that removes water from the waste material, and you pass out a feces that is reasonably solid. As it goes through this process, whatever they put, the casing that they put over the cocaine can leak. And if it leaks, that is where you have serious problem. Cocaine will now get into the digestive system, into the bloodstream, and you can get extreme sweating. You can get what we call mydriasis, that your pupils become fixed, that become dilated, really big. You become agitated. You become paranoid. You believe that people are trying to hurt you. As I said, you sweat profusely, and you become very agitated. You start to move all over the place, and I've seen people who have overdose of cocaine have what we look like seizures, like epileptic seizures. So it is extremely dangerous. It is a form of Russian roulette, and it is just not worth the chance, because as the superintendent has told us, this person began to show signs that whatever is going through his system, the casing has begun to leak, coming through acid and bile acids and other digestive substances, and then it was getting into his bloodstream before he was rescued and carried to a medical facility where they were able to help him.
This is then horrific, what you've been able to detail for us, Dr. Paul Wright, indicating to us not only the dangers of this, but putting it within the characterization of the very dangerous game called Russian roulette. This idea that no matter what it is that you do, you take a risk with your life. It's a near risk, and it is often one that might have fatal consequences. You'll also be arrested, as you said there. Let me turn to our next guest here inside the show, because the National Council on Drug Abuse might have believed that we put this in the past. There had been stories years ago about individuals getting involved in the practice of smuggling drugs across the border using pellets and making themselves mules, effectively beasts of burden, to carry these drugs across. From the perspective of the National Council, are you surprised by what is going on, especially as we have heard that there might be economic pressures pushing people to get back involved in this practice as well?
Thank you for that. Well, certainly we know that we will continue to work to reduce this issue, but it's by no means eradicated. And as long as there is a demand, there will continue to be drivers into this network. With the World Drug Report in 2025 saying that there are 300 million illicit drug users worldwide, we see that the issue is still there. And so, though we are trying to put in these evidence-based drug prevention programs, we have to look at it from a multifaceted approach. And it's going to require legislative changes, public health changes, as well as other economic input. And so, to say surprised, we still have a burden, and therefore we'll still have a problem because there is a demand.
We're still having a burden because there's still an impact. That's something that I want everybody to take from what you've said, Dr. Robinson Barrett. However, for some people, they're watching this right now and saying to themselves, maybe I could run the risk. Maybe, it wouldn't happen to me. What are some of the myths that you want to then dispel? Because some people might believe, my particular pressures, my particular stresses, when I deal with a professionally packaged product, all the things that we just heard Dr. Paul Wright illustrate as some of the deadly consequences, they won't happen to me. Talk to those people now who might be recruited into this practice.
Well, I think what Doc has highlighted is very important, that there is no way to predict that you will be okay. I mean, there is the practice of body packing, which is the transportation versus the stuffing when you're trying to hide it quickly. But both have significant implications. We know that even just 1 gram of cocaine can be fatal because of the risk of the acute toxicity if there is any perforation or rupture of the contents. So, we're risking intestinal obstruction and sepsis, bowel perforation, along with all the other risk of toxicity, the cardiovascular risks with the arrhythmias and seizures, as Doc would have alluded to already. So I would say that we have to look at the multifaceted approach, the legislative side of things. From a public health perspective, we really want to look at evidence-based drug programs because the people who are most affected, as you would have said, are vulnerable people. So we're talking about young people who are recruited into this. And so we need to be able to start drug prevention programs as early as possible so that we know the dangers of these things, programs like this to educate persons. And we also want to look at other areas in terms of the supply and demand areas, in terms of providing alternatives for people who are within this trade, which we know is what the United Nations would advocate for nations to minimize this threat.
Dr. Paul Wright, hearing both you and the National Council on Drug Abuse, Dr. Robinson Barrett, talk to us there, it's sobering. For many Jamaicans, they hear this and they go, all right, I've heard the 2 doctors talk, maybe I don't run the risk. Now that you have explained to us what takes place, now that we have heard some of the end results, talk to somebody out there who's saying, I was thinking about it, somebody has come to me about it, what it is that I need to think of for myself, for my family, for my future, if I am then to hear and to attempt to be recruited on this.
The first thing you have to do is work out the cost benefit of what you're going to do. What is the cost of what I'm about to do? I'm about to ingest an illegal substance. If the authorities detect that I have this illegal substance and I have to go through a series of different tests and x-rays and everything when I go through the airport facilities and customs in order to get out. If they detect this with me, then my whole life is over. My family is going to be embarrassed and I will end up in prison. If I ingest the substance and what the people who have given it to me to ingest have not done it properly, then I will suffer the consequences of leakage, which will affect my health permanently in the long term, because I will now have changes in my neurovascular system, in my digestive system, and I can also die. So you have to work out the cost benefit of what you're doing. And when you look at the cost of detection and the cost of rupture or leakage of the substance that you have ingested, I think the end result with what you say, it is just not worth it. And I think that is what we need to do on a national scale, to let people look at the cost benefit of their actions. And as Dr. Barrett has told us, to start a program where we educate our young people, the vulnerable people, because these are the people who are tempted to go into this
It's
trade.
clear that we're going to have a second part of this conversation, because not only is this one of these discussions that we haven't had for a while, talking about the dangers and the risks, but also talking about the public shaming as well, what happens and the health consequences of this. Now, it's clear that we have to have Dr. Kristen Robinson Barrett, Director of Treatment at the National Council of Drug Abuse, as well as Dr. Paul Wright, General Practitioner and Sports Medicine expert, but also someone who is able to explain to us the internals of this. Thanks so much for staying with us inside Lead Story.
Thank you.
You're a woman in business, it's time to go bigger.
Your ambition is calling, and Horizon for Women in Business is answering.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services designed for women entrepreneurs to unlock the capital you need to grow and take your business beyond limits. With quick approval, flexible repayment, and low interest rates, your success is on the horizon.
Call us now. The funds are waiting.
Your success is on the horizon.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Our final conversation tonight looks at transparency and whether Jamaica's access to information framework is strong enough to support accountability. Joining us is Mikkel Jackson, Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice. Mikkel, thanks so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Access to justice is a big area that Jamaicans for Justice is looking at. Talk to us about why access to information is a democratic safeguard.
No, we have a constitutional right to seek, receive, and disseminate information. We also have a constitutional right of freedom of expression. What does that mean? It means that public information by state agencies or companies within which the government has a 50% stake in, they are obligated under law, in keeping with the Constitution, to provide information to us. To borrow a phrase from one of my civil society colleagues, Jeanette Calder, we are the employers of government. We are the owners of information, and therefore it is our democratic right to receive that information. For example, if you want to get a sense of what discussion happened at the National Housing Trust in terms of how decisions were taken and the outcome of the decision and who was a part of it, it is within your constitutional right, as empowered further by this particular legislation, to get that information. So I just want to implore upon the citizenry, the viewers, those listening in, to utilize the access to information framework much, much more, because it is your constitutional right. And we must also applaud our country, because even within the Commonwealth region, Jamaica, we have a framework. We should be happy that we have it, because we're still far ahead of some of our other Caribbean countries, for example, Barbados. And I really do encourage the citizens to get involved and exercise your right to know.
I think it's so important that you have highlighted the access to information legislation, and you're also taking a look, even where other Caribbean countries don't have it, where Jamaica can improve. Now, this is a very brief overview conversation that we'll be having with you today. We'll bring you back in with Jeanette Calder to help us better understand how to use it and what to do. But what should citizens understand about their right to information and how to assert it?
Well, I would say it's important that we start from appreciating why it is that it is important. For example, many of us are upset about matters such as corruption. Many of us are upset about human rights violation, and we want to know that our agencies are responding to us in a way that makes sense, breaking down the information for you. Then that access to information framework is there. Dare I say that we're also in an era where you have AI. We're also in an era where technology means that information is so fast-paced in how it is transmitted. And because of that, it's a good thing. You can go on social media, you know what is happening. But what also happens is a lot of misinformation and disinformation.
So people deliberately going out there and sharing information they know is wrong, and that's disinformation and misinformation, where they thought something was accurate, but they share it widely and it is not in fact accurate.
Exactly. So whether it's ignorance or mischief, you have the mis and the disinformation happening. Now, citizens can combat misinformation by readily accessing the information. So outside of accessing the information framework, what I said today, Jodi-Ann and listeners, is that the state bodies need to get to what we call proactive disclosure. So in other words, if I hear that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is issuing some hurricane relief, rather than having the Honourable Pernell Charles Jr. now coming out on social media and the official channels, taking away from his busy schedule to combat that misinformation, what would have already been available is clear information on all of the channels of the ministry. When the parliament meets, the host of parliament would tell you everything that is on the website before Tuesday's meeting, after Tuesday's meeting, and you know what is happening next week. That is what we call proactive disclosure. And that is what we need to get to, where citizens actually utilize the ATI framework less, because the state agencies are providing the information in a timely manner, but importantly, in a digestible manner. So in other words, you don't have to be attorney like you, Jodi, to read the information, because information is something that we can readily
and I think
appreciate.
You highlighting not only that we have this pathway to be able to get this information, but then also now helping us figure out why we might need it and what we need to combat, especially in an age of misinformation, disinformation, and artificial intelligence, certainly sets up our next conversation about access to information legislation here in Jamaica. Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice, Mikkel Jackson.